Hey, this is Justin. Today I want to talk about who I am as a reflective practitioner and what does being a reflective practitioner mean to me. So, as I was reading the Teach, Reflect, Learn textbook this week, I realized that there was a one word that kept popping up over and over and over and over again through the entire book. And I realized that this word has a lot of importance to my learning as a reflective practitioner. And as obvious as this word might be, the word was self-reflection. So why did the word self-reflection continually pop up? Well, I think that has a lot to do with what I believe that self-reflection actually is. And that's that self-reflection is an intentional, meaningful device to allow us to improve and to advance and to grow in our professional thinking and our professional learning. It's also a continuous cycle, and I think that's important, that as I continue to self-reflect, that I continue to make advances, and then after the advances are made, that I start from the ground up and continue again. So I do believe that self-reflection is a very important word to me, and when I saw it over and over and over again, I'm like, you know what? That's what I'm learning about. That's what I really aim to be as a self-reflective practitioner. And yeah, so there was a phrase that I saw in that same text that really stood out to me, and that was the doing-thinking gap. When I reflect about times in my career thus far where I've done some self-reflection, I've always been afraid, and the same questions continually come up, and that's, how do I implement the things that I've been thinking about, and how do I make them action? And I believe that's what the doing thinking gap is all about. I think that I need to learn how to apply the things that I'm thinking about, and I think that the only way to be able to do that is by really creating change and really intentionally, meaningfully and intentionally doing the things that I'm thinking about, and setting myself up for potential failure, but also setting myself up for potential success. The authors paraphrased John Dewey in the Teach, Reflect, Learn textbook with a sentence that really caught my eye, and that was, doing the right thing matters, but self-reflection matters more. And that was really an interesting thing to think about, because obviously I know doing the right thing is really important, and we're always taught, do the right thing, be a good person, do what matters. Self-reflection matters more, and I think that's true because when we self-reflect, it helps us to do those right things. Without self-reflection, we wouldn't have the tools that we need to be able to do those things that are the right things that we need to do. And ultimately, our students are depending on us to self-reflect. They need us to do that, because without our self-reflection, we don't continue to improve, we don't continue to learn, and we don't continue to become better teachers. And ultimately, it's our students who pay that consequence of us not self-reflecting. So I think that because it's so important that they're depending on us, that I think that's why self-reflection matters more than just doing the right thing. I thought about where I am, and as a reflective practitioner in my personal day-to-day professional reflections. And I took the assessment that was in the Teach, Reflect, Learn textbook. And after doing so, it told me that I was in the action phase. That I was already beginning to implement some of the things that I was thinking about. And I think that's true. I think that I'm very new to this kind of thinking. I'm very new to this kind of action. But I'm beginning to implement the things that I'm thinking about, beginning to implement the things that I'm learning about, beginning to see real progress in my classrooms, or in my teaching in general, in all of the things that I do. And it's a really great feeling to have, to see the things that I'm doing. However, I don't feel that I'm strongly situated in the action phase, or in that stage of the continuum. I do feel that part of me is still very much in the conscious phase. I feel that I'm still demonstrating that doing thinking gap that I talked about earlier, where I know that there's an issue and I know there's something that maybe I would like to see done differently, or I know that there's a goal that I want to achieve, but I'm still not sure how to achieve that. Or I think even I might be sure but don't know how to implement it. So I do feel that I am in the action phase, but I still have a lot of elements from the conscious stage. But I am starting to transition, and I think with a little bit more practice, I think that I will work my way solidly into the action phase, if not higher. In my practice teaching during practicum, there were many times when, looking back upon it now, I thought that I was reflecting effectively. I would ponder, I would drive home, I would leave class, and I'd drive home, and I would ponder about all of the things that happened that day, and a bunch of thoughts would come running to my mind, and I would think, okay, well, this happened today, and this happened today, and that happened today, and I would think, okay, how can I not let this happen today? How can I have a better relationship with student X? How can I make sure student Y is really grasping this material, who is really struggling today? What can I do? Student C was really having trouble making friends. What can I do? And all of these thoughts would just come to my mind. And I would think about that, and sometimes I would go to bed, and again, more of these thoughts would creep into my mind. And I thought, okay, gee, I really have a grasp on this reflection thing. I'm thinking about this stuff constantly, and for the most part, I was thinking about, okay, what's the next step? How can I do these things? What do I need to do for this student or for my teaching? What I realize now that I was actually doing was not effective reflection. It was just catering to the thoughts that were running to my mind. It was just more or less thinking. Again, it was that thinking-doing gap, right? I thought about these things, but I wasn't doing anything about it. The reflecting or the thinking that I was doing at the time was not intentional. I didn't set aside a block of time and say, okay, now I'm going to reflect on these things. It just sort of happened, and I didn't take notes. I didn't collect records or anything like that to remind myself or to measure success or anything like that. I would often look at observational notes that I would make or that I would consider about students, or I would look at various formative assessments that we had conducted with the students, and I would use that evidence as okay, well, the students did not grasp this concept that I taught them, so I do need to spend more time on this, or this gives me a great opportunity to talk about this, or whatever. And I was using evidence to help me with that, but really it wasn't intentional. I was just kind of pondering it, and I think in order to improve on my self-reflective practice, I really need to dedicate some time to this and really make the reflecting that I'm doing, give it a sense of intentionality, and I think that will be a lot more meaningful for my practice. When I consider the fact that right now I'm on the action phase, or maybe even beginning my adventure on the action phase, I think about the continuum of reflection that was presented in the Teach, Reflect, Learn book. And it's really a great metaphor and a perfect visual tool to help grasp the idea of reflection. And I liked how they were separated by stages, and I liked how they were each sequential, because it helps visually identify where am I going, kind of like a roadmap. But unlike a roadmap, I thought, gee, this looks like there's only one way to get there, and it doesn't provide a lot of options. So I thought, the big thing that this continuum, the illustration anyway, of the continuum that was presented in the Teach, Reflect, Learn textbook, what it was missing was a way to represent the cyclical nature that reflection is. Many times, you'll realize that you're in that conscious stage, and then you'll enter the action stage, and you'll start implementing the things that you had thought of. But then you'll need to, take a step back and go back to the conscious stage, because for whatever reason, the things that you had enacted action upon didn't work, and now you aren't really sure again how to implement them, and you need to go back a step, or you need to, or even more importantly, something else has happened entirely, and you're completely unaware of it, perhaps. Overall, I think that the continuum of reflection is a great metaphor and a great tool for new reflective practitioners to consider. But I do think that it's important to remember that a person could be perhaps in different stages of the continuum for different areas, and that's perfectly okay, and I think that's important as a reflective practitioner. So in conclusion, I think that self-reflection is such an important tool. I can't wait to learn more about how to do it effectively, and I think that given the opportunity to learn how to do that, I think that my professional ways of handling myself in a classroom, or even just my teaching strategies, or the things that I'm going to be doing in a classroom, I can't wait to see what happens with those and how they improve, thanks to the tools that I'm going to get from this class, and the way that I'm going to self-reflect as I'm going. Thanks a lot. I look forward to blogging in the future. Thanks. Bye.